And when you're breaking up, life doesn't make sense anymore. Life is not supposed to make sense anyway, so you have to figure it out and give it a meaning. Hello my friends, and welcome to a new episode of your favorite kind of wisdom. I decided to continue the previous episode's theme, and I will talk about the inevitable end of a shitty relationship, which is a breakup. There are so many articles and books on the internet on how to deal with breakups. I'm not gonna tell you all the information I found on the internet. I'm just gonna tell you my personal experience and how I dealt with breakups in general. When you're breaking up, even if it was your idea or your partner's, it's still devastating. And the worst thing to do is try to bargain your way back in. First piece of advice, don't do it. Don't ever do it. If you broke up, just stick to your decision or your partner's decision and just move on. You probably spent a lot of your time in the relationship thinking about your partner, so your life was quite centered around them. And when you're breaking up, life doesn't make sense anymore. Life is not supposed to make sense anyway, so you have to figure it out and give it a meaning. So this is a perfect opportunity for a fresh start and to find your greater purpose, wherever that may be. To do this, you have to get through certain steps of grief and rebuild. The process of rebuilding, you have to do it alone. So we're talking about no rebound relationships, no jumping in a relationship. They're doomed anyway. Also, you need to grieve. First of all, go through all the phases of grief, and don't worry if you skip one or if they're recurring. Grief is like a cycle. It can go back and forth, but each time with less intensity. By the way, another piece of advice, don't ever date anyone who's just fresh out of a relationship. Ever. You have to understand your feelings. Loneliness and sadness, these generally come from thoughts, and in these times, thoughts can be really deceiving. I highly recommend that you write down what you're feeling over this process and check in later to see how familiar or unfamiliar these things are. The main idea is that you need to pinpoint and go to the root of your thoughts to figure out what's happening. And as I said, thoughts can be deceiving, so you need to figure out what's real and what's made up from your mind. Also, you have to learn how to be alone. Alone doesn't mean unhappy. Alone means that there's nobody physically around you at this particular time. And that's fine. Of course, a friend or a mother or a therapist or a doctor can prove themselves useful in these times. But you can't always expect that someone's out there for you 24/7. By doing things alone, you'll be more emotionally stable and less needy, things you'll need in a future relationship. One of the most important things is you have to keep in mind that this will pass. Everything in life ends. Good things, bad things, relationships, whatever. The only comforting thought in those moments is that with every day that passes, you're more closer to freedom. You just have to be smart and cautious about your choices in this period. It's good to have 1 or 2 days off work or school if you feel really low, but if the symptoms grow more intense, then perhaps you should see a therapist or a doctor, because depression is not something you can play with. It was my dose of cheap wisdom for you for this week. I hope I'll see you next week with happier subjects. See ya.